here to help you with breeze, planting seeds and teaching skills. Teachers turn schoolyards to dreams. Who hate school gardens with ease?
Want to keep the caretakers away from your garden? Sheet mulch. You're listening to the School Gardens with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Leila Mir-Eskandari, and this is episode number 53. I visited another school yesterday morning, and I met with the director of the daycare center that's located at that school. This daycare is one of the oldest clients of mine, one of the first organizations I started working with. I don't know, in 2014, 2015, I believe. Amazing people, and their daycare runs a Reggio-inspired program, and I've worked with them during summers almost every year with the exception of the COVID years. Amazing, amazing people. I know them for years and years and years. This is the only place I personally teach kids at these days, and I love it. It's part of my summer restful fun, to be honest with you. The only time of year that I get to actually be in the classroom again. Reminds me of the good old times when I used to teach my programs myself, and it keeps me connected with kids. So I love it so much. The teachers of this daycare center participated in my Oasis Classroom program this year because they wanted to start growing their own vegetables before summer. So long story short, I went for a visit to see how the space is doing, take a quick look, what needs to be done, to prep for my summer program, etc. And guess what? The caretakers this year decided that they don't want to cut the grass in between the garden beds. So the grass is all growing in there and it's just a mess. Essentially, there's no proper path to get to the different garden beds. All these years, we never had this problem before. So I asked Heather, the lovely director of this daycare center, what happened? And apparently the caretaker is new and he just doesn't want to do this. Now, this is a TDSB school, Toronto District School Board, which is one of the school boards in the Greater Toronto area. And if you don't know, the caretakers are, unionized and constantly guarding against extra work. And depending on their personality, they might or might not like the idea of a, vegetable garden under the area of their care. Now, don't get me wrong, some of these caretakers I have met over the years and years and years that I've worked with TDSB are such lovely, supportive, and amazing people. But as any group, anywhere in the world, TDSB caretakers also have all kinds of people amongst them, and this new caretaker at this school seems to be one of those, if you know what I mean. Usually in these cases, we know that we shouldn't really engage with them. We shouldn't argue because they will go straight to the union and, make a fuss and make all kinds of trouble. So I told her, Heather, maybe she could cut the grass herself. And you know what she said? She said, I did. And someone saw it, went to TDSB and complained that I am taking the caretaker's job away from them. And I got a slap on the back of my hand. Now, we don't know if this was the caretaker. We have no idea who this was. But there are always those types of people, right? Doesn't matter. What matters is she got busted for trying to maintain the garden. I recently had another incident at another school with the caretaker. The teachers at this other school were in my Caja Oasis program and had installed Caja planters. Now, what happened is he damaged one of the planters with the weed whacker when he was, cutting the grass around the planter. This was an honest mistake. This caretaker is lovely and very supportive. He didn't mean this to happen, and this was totally an accident. But the result was that planter was totally ruined, unfortunately, and we couldn't use it anymore. Another example I could give you is when caretakers mow over young fruit trees by mistake. I mean, we go through such a long approval process usually, and because fruit trees are permanent, and when it comes to permanent stuff, we really have to go and get approvals and all of that. It's not just an annual vegetable garden that can be moved or removed, right? It's different. So, and we usually have to come up with, an annual maintenance plan, blah, blah, blah. We have to, go through lots of hoops to get those approvals. And we do all of that. And the kids finally get to plant their fruit trees with such excitement and happy fuss and all that. And then the caretakers cut the lawn and then cut the young fruit seedling with the lawn the next time that they mow, which is such a huge disappointment for everybody. I've seen this last one happen so many times over and over the years. Not all of these that happened were under my care or under my programs, but I've heard this from educators time and time again that this happens, that they, get to finally plant their young fruit tree seedlings, and then they get mowed over the next time that the caretakers take care of the lawn. The solution I always recommend, and it works like a charm, and it solves all of these different examples of problems that I just told you about, is sheet mulching. Now, this is a permaculture garden technique for turning the lawn into a garden without tearing the lawn up, right? So now it can be used for garden beds or paths. I know in this, story, in this episode, and with the stories that I just told you, we're talking about, paths and pathways, but I want you to know that you can use this technique to build garden beds too. Now, it's super easy to do for the students and also super fun, which is a huge benefit in a school garden, because not having to hire someone makes things easier because you don't have to, go find somebody and, budget for it and get approvals for it or anything like that. Because like, for example, TDSB, you can't just go and hire anybody. It has to be the vendors that work with TDSB and have, contracts and agreements with TDSB. Those guys are usually very, very expensive, much more expensive than another guy that you can find outside of the group of vendors of TDSB, yada, 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 right? So a lot of problems. So it's really, really good if there's something that you're doing can be done by the students and the teachers themselves, and you don't have to go out and it can be done as part of the education during the school day, right? And it also saves money when you do that. So it needs very little budget. And that's important because you know how money is always, challenging in schools, especially in public schools. I mean, in all schools. It doesn't matter if it's private or public, money is always, an issue. Because all you need essentially is cardboard, which you can, access for free, water, which you have at your school. I mean, you have a garden, you have a hose, and you have a water tap, right? And you need soil for the garden beds if you're building garden beds. And if we're talking about paths, mulch, wood mulch, that's all you need. And these are all, not very expensive. And your students will do it, which makes it even less expensive because you don't have to hire anyone. It requires no permanent structure, which is a huge plus because school boards and districts frown upon anything permanent or require a lengthy approval and process and jumping through a bunch of hoops before they let you do something that has a slight permanence to it. And there are very good reasons for them being this way, okay? I'm not saying this is wrong or they're trying to make your life hard. No. There are reasons for it. But the problem is that with those types of procedures and processes, then it's lengthy and they might not even at the end of the day approve it and all of that. And for your pathways, if you want to, have asphalt or cobblestones or even gravel, you not only need to hire adults to do it because, like, for example, gravel, it's not easy for students, especially younger students, to move around. It's a lot of hard work and labor. And it has a little bit of a permanence to it because removing gravel is, I don't know if you've ever done that or anything close to that. Working with stone and gravel is really difficult. Removing gravel is really difficult. So it has a permanence to it. So you not only need to hire adults to do it, but you also will need to get approvals since those, are more permanent. But wood mulch, which is the material that you use when you sheet mulch, is not permanent at all. The only downside to it is that you will have to, top up the mulch or replenish the mulch, like let's say every 2 years. But that's the only downside to it. And that also can be done by your students every 2 years. And it's a fun process for them to do and also educational. Now, how do you do this technique that I am such a huge fan of? It's really simple and fun. Your students will water the paths, because we're talking about paths right now. Cover all of it thoroughly with wetted cardboard so that there's no, cracks or, holes or anything like that. Overlay cardboards and top it up with wood mulch. And that's it. What this does is the grass underneath or weeds or anything that was underneath essentially will die and give its energy back to the soil without you having to, tear anything up. Because I don't know if you've torn up grass before, not an easy task. So you don't need to do any of that. You just leave the grass there and you cover it with cardboard and top it up with mulch. And the grass will die and give its energy back to the soil and nothing else will grow through. And you get to have a neatly mulched pathway. Now, how does this solve the problems I described to you in those examples? When there is no grass, there is no need to cut it. So the caretakers who complain about having to maneuver around your garden beds and, put up a fit about how your garden is adding to the work, yada, yada, will have nothing to complain about as you eliminated the grass completely. They should actually be happy because you are reducing the amount of work that they had to do before the garden was there. No one would damage your planters by mistake when they are trying to cut the grass, and no one would, mow over your fruit tree seedlings if instead of them being right in the middle of the grass, they are, planted in the middle of a big sheet mulch circle that's, for example, outlined with this with a circle of stones, because that's going to be so obvious and almost impossible to go over with a lawnmower. Easy peasy to build. It's built in the hands of the students, super fun and educational, very inexpensive, requires no approvals because all you're doing is adding mulch to your garden. It's super low maintenance and solves almost all of your lawn maintenance problems that you'll have to deal with, as by eliminating the lawn, it removes friction with the caretakers and all of that. I hope this helps. I'll talk to you next week in another episode. You've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and please share this episode with other teachers who might be interested in this topic. See you next week for a new episode.